The security situation on Israel's southern border is one of the key issues featuring in every Israeli election, and this one is no different. When our Michelle McCrory sat down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu alongside our French language channel anchor Barbara and Israel Hayom Boaz Bithmuth, he shed light on his views surrounding the future dealings with Hamas in the Gaza Strip.
There was a possibility of conquering them. It's a possibility. It would draw a lot of blood from our people. It would be very costly, but it's not something that I can rule out completely. However, when I talk to people, Arab leaders, and I meet quite a few of them, and I said, would you be willing, if we had to do this, would you take Gaza? You know, if we had to, we had no choice. We had to fight and actually go in and finish the job. Nobody said yes. They all said no. So I asked myself, you know, what is the option? To go and conquer them? If necessary, we'll do it. We've got forces now around Gaza that are poised to get a larger action. But in the last 4.5 years, with all the difficulties, not a single Israeli citizen was killed from Gaza, although 300 Palestinian terrorists who tried to storm the fence, kidnap our soldiers and kill them, they've been killed. And thousands were wounded. We didn't let them go through. And I think more than that, you know, if I have to, I'll do it. But I'm willing to act in the most measured and responsible way, even though it may cost me politically, with people who know that they wouldn't do anything better. But I will not do it at the cost of Israeli lives.
If you've just joined us, I'll reintroduce our panel. Foreign Affairs Director for the Likud Party, Eli Chazan, member of the Israeli Parliament for the Labour Party, Professor Yossi Yona, and political strategist for the New Right Party, Jeremy Sultan. Professor, during this election campaign, there has been another escalation between Israel and Hamas, of which, of course, became political fodder. All parties criticising Netanyahu for his response. One of those who said that it wasn't strong enough was, of course, Gantz. Now, from the perspective of the Prime Minister, what he suggested was that, in fact, as his former chief of staff, he didn't call for anything different than what Netanyahu did. So what do you say to that?
First, I agree with what you're saying. There's some kind of the bickering is about how, about ways how to contain the situation. But none of them, at least the two contenders, presenting to the Israeli public some kind of a strategic or some kind of a comprehensive way of how to deal with the Gaza Strip. Now, what I mean by that and what ought to be done, hey, we've got to have some unified Palestinian governing force, whereby we would be able to deal with them as one address. And now this is not in the interest of the Netanyahu's government. The very fact that there is this separation between Gaza Strip and Hamas and...
But wouldn't any Israeli leader have to contend with that? That's just status quo. That's up to the Palestinians to find some kind of resolution.
There is a lack of courage. Let me say it this way, Tracy. There is a lack of courage to come to say, well, look, guys, what we've got to do there, it is our vital national Zionist interest that there would be a unified address there that we can
Are you saying that Israel, I'm just trying to work out how this works, that Israel would have to try and help find some unity between the Palestinian factions?
Sure, this is our interest, that there would be a unified government. So that, because you see, so far, what would be the rhetoric, the apology on part of Netanyahu? Well, guys, if we're going to have to sign some kind of a peace treaty with the Abu Mazen, what would become of that when it is being challenged by the Hamas? So there is no address to talk with, you know. So
are you suggesting that Israel mediate between Fatah and Hamas?
Israel is always mediating. Israel is
but specifically between Fatah and Hamas, Israel should be the mediator.
No, I'm not saying that.
That sounds crazy to me.
No, Jeremy. What I'm going to say is the following thing: that Israel could have created the conditions whereby the Palestinian Authority would be the legitimate address of the Palestinian people in its entirety. This is our interest. So you are not involving in the sense of summoning...
They seem to be struggling to do that.
I have an answer. Just to answer Jeremy.
I'm trying to understand how you do it.
Well, I'm trying to explain. For instance, that you can assist Fatah's forces in the Gaza Strip because they are in alliance with Abu Mazen.
So we should
I just want to say, Fatah being the ruling Palestinian faction in the West Bank, Abu Mazen being Mahmoud Abbas.
Nobody's sending soldiers.
Okay.
But you have a role to play in terms of creating the conditions whereby there would be a unified government on part of the Palestinians, so they would be able to negotiate with them.
That seems to be the goal, but that hasn't been able to be achieved.
To forget that the Palestinians tried so many times. They simply don't like each other. Fatah and Hamas, they despise each other, and we are not going into it because we don't have any interest in going into it.
Is it a convenient reality that the Palestinian factions don't like each other for Netanyahu because he can continue to maintain the status quo?
Of course, we're in favor of the status quo. I'm concerned about the one-state solution.
When you say in favor of the status quo, you're in favor of the suffering Palestinian people inside Gaza underneath Hamas. So wouldn't you want to be changing that?
By the way, we were trying to help to the Palestinians in Gaza. Pay attention, there is not a civic siege because Israel delivers goods almost on a daily basis. It's not about that. It's about being against Hamas leaders. And with all due respect, don't forget one thing. The Palestinian suffers because of the Palestinians, not because of Israel.
Okay, Jeremy, I want to ask you, when we're focusing now on perhaps the intentions or the hopes of the Blue and White Party. These are former military men, at least 3 of them. Why would there be a sense, I suppose, that they would make decisions that would harm the security of Israel?
Well, I don't think anyone thinks that intentionally anyone would do anything that would harm the security or the citizens of the State of Israel. I think it's a question about, is this the right policy that we want to see? One of the things that you've brought up a lot during this panel is what are the real differences? And one of the things I was trying to understand from Yossi also, since he's representing the left side of the political spectrum, what other solutions are you bringing to actually put on the table in terms of substance? Because you can throw out a lot of phrases.
What's been done over and over again hasn't created any real change.
I agree
Perhaps
with
there
you.
should be some new thinking.
Perhaps we should have other thinking, but in a different direction. Instead of going in Yossi's direction, I'm not saying going as far as a full-out ground offensive, but there are other types of things.
That's what Naftali Bennett's saying from the New Right Party.
What he's
not saying ground offensive, but he's effectively saying he's saying do it from the air and continue to keep them.
It's been very effective in Syria. He's saying we should do the same thing that we've been doing with Syria, do it in Gaza.
But power never is enough. You know, when you use power, you always have to think about what comes next. What is the policy that you want to actually to facilitate, to advance by using force? So as I was saying,
you cannot understand our basic assumptions. I want to remind you, in 2000 and in 2007, the left wing in Israel offered to Abu Mazen, and in 2000 to Arafat, everything he could offer. He refused. They refused. Arafat and Abu Mazen, because there is something which we understand.
I don't want to get into solving the Israeli-Palestinian peace process now because we've only got about 2 minutes left, but I do want to ask you, Eli, would Netanyahu, why would he make a promise that at least we're hearing now that he intends to annex or, take control of large swaths of the West Bank?
First of all, I want to make it clear, Netanyahu didn't speak about whole Judea and Samaria. No. There is a Palestinian autonomy, the Palestinian Authority. He spoke about the block of settlements, mainly because reality has changed. There is a new president, there is about time to do it. And don't forget, well, after the recognition, the American recognition on Israeli sovereignty and the Golan Heights, it's about time. And another point to think about.
A week before the elections.
No doubt about it. And don't forget, if you look at the Clinton parameters, it speaks about the block of settlements.
Does this say, though, just very, very briefly, though, does this say that Netanyahu is not interested in a peace deal if he's saying that he's going to start annexing at least pockets of Israeli settlements?
He's interested in one thing, to be realistic. And as you can see...
According to whose reality?
According to the reality on the Middle East.
Okay,
we are living in a tough neighborhood.
Yeah. All right, it is, of course, a very difficult one to resolve.